A court in Bangladesh has sentenced the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to death. A guilty verdict was delivered at the end of a months-long trial. The prosecution had sought the death penalty for Hasina and a former Home Minister. The trial was held in their absence in Dhaka. Both Hasina and the ex-minister Asaduzzaman Khan have fled from Bangladesh. She was charged with crimes against humanity over the deaths of protesters during a student-led uprising in 2024. The UN says around 1,400 people were killed. Hasina is now in India. She has defied court orders to return to Bangladesh and says her conviction was politically motivated. DW's Beenish Javed has been covering the story from the beginning. She's reported from Bangladesh about this numerous times. Beenish, tell us more about the verdict and how the court arrived at that conclusion.
So, Terry, it has been, first of all, quite eventful few hours in Bangladesh. This courtroom, when the court was announcing the judgment, the sentence, it was packed both inside and outside. And when the court announced that they are sentencing Sheikh Hasina to death for crimes against humanity, we saw that inside the court erupted in applause, and the same happened outside the court. There is a huge public interest. Now, the court says that they have enough evidence on the basis of which they are sentencing her to death. During this, it was a long, for a couple of hours, this sentence, they kept announcing portions of the 453-page judgment. So basically, they informed public about the allegations against Sheikh Hasina. They say they have strong testimonies from eyewitnesses, from doctors, of the brutal crackdown that happened in the uprising last year. The uprising started, Terry, with student protesters who were protesting against government job quotas, but that erupted into countrywide uprising, primarily because the students faced they say a brutal crackdown, and that eventually led to the downfall of Sheikh Hasina.
You mentioned there was applause in the courtroom outside the courthouse, but of course this resonates with different groups differently throughout Bangladesh. What reactions are you seeing beyond the courthouse?
So people who were directly impacted by the crackdown, and not only people who were directly impacted, in urban centers in Bangladesh, there is a lot of anger how the former government handled these protests. 1,400 is not a small number. 1,400 protesters killed, thousands of them injured. Many became severely injured, lost their eyesight. So the country is still traumatized from that deadly episode that they saw. And I was speaking with one of the protesters in Bangladesh, his brother Mir Mugdo. He was 25-year-old. He was shot directly by a police bullet, and he told me that when the verdict was announced, he was crying, and he said the entire Bangladesh, this is his court, that the entire Bangladesh is crying because they wanted to see justice. They thought that it was the government behind those killings. Of course, Sheikh Hasina has denied these allegations, but many people in Bangladesh see that they have found some closure after this sentencing.
There are still many in Bangladesh who support Sheikh Hasina and may not be happy with this court decision. Can we expect any further unrest in Bangladesh as a result of this, or what sort of backlash could there be?
So even ahead of this sentencing, there were several attacks, crude bomb explosions, vehicles were torched down, so the tension was really high. Now, we don't know who was directly behind these attacks, but it's many people suspect, security forces suspect that they were supporters of Sheikh Hasina, were protesting and angry at this expected judgment. As you have rightly mentioned, it's a big political party. Hasina has, and her party has some supporters in different parts of the country, and they're also banned from running elections next year. And in that background, it is not unexpected. Political violence is not expected. We could see some episodes of that.
Beenish, thank you very much. DW's Beenish Javed. Well, for more, let's cross to New Delhi now for The View from the Indian capital. Our correspondent Shalu Yadav is standing by there. Shalu, India has been sheltering Sheikh Hasina. How's the government there likely to react to this verdict and the sentence?
Well, we haven't had an official reaction from the Indian government yet, but the fact that the Indian government has allowed Sheikh Hasina to stay in exile for over a year is being seen as a statement in itself, Terry. But before that, let me share with our viewers that Sheikh Hasina herself has reacted to this verdict. She's been speaking to the Indian media and the international wire agencies before and now after the verdict as well. She has called it a rigged tribunal. She says they are biased and politically motivated, and in her words, I quote, she says that in their distasteful call for the death penalty, they reveal the brazen and murderous intent of extremist figures within the interim government to remove Bangladesh's last elected Prime Minister and to nullify the Awami League as a political force. Terry, our journalists here, DW Bengali correspondent Shamanta Ghosh has also got a first reaction from the ex-Home Minister Asad Khan Kamal, and we asked him pointedly about what he thinks India's reaction would be to this verdict, and he said with confidence that he does not think that India is going to take this verdict very seriously, and he says that he trusts India's good intentions. Now, we've also had Sheikh Hasina's son Wazed in an interview to Reuters before the verdict say that India is giving full security to Sheikh Hasina and in fact treating her as a head of state. But India hasn't used such overarching statements to describe, what their position on Sheikh Hasina is. They've been quite vague about their reaction on this for the last 1 year. But now that the verdict is out, I think they would be compelled to share an official statement, and we'll let our viewers know as soon as that happens.
Well, Bangladesh would very much like to see Sheikh Hasina extradited and returned to the country to take her judgment there. What impact is this trial having on India-Bangladesh relations?
Well, even before the trial, the India-Bangladesh relationship has been impacted with the new interim government. It's been asking the Indian government for extradition of Sheikh Hasina back to the country. India hasn't responded to that, despite there being an extradition between the two governments. She's had deep ties with the Indian government, not just with this government, but previous governments of different parties. And she's been making statements while she's been in exile, to which the Bangladeshi government has objected to. In fact, early this year, they summoned Indian envoy to mark their protest for allowing Sheikh Hasina to issue so-called objectionable statements from its land. But India reacted sharply to that, saying that they should not conflate her statements made in her personal capacity with India's position on India-Bangladesh relationship. Now, that said, Terry, I think there's some sort of background that needs to be shared with our viewers that might help them decode why India is being, in a dilemma when it comes to taking a position on this matter. India has had deep ties with Bangladesh and with the Sheikh Hasina family. Remember, this is not the first time that she's been in exile in the country. In the 70s, when her father and other family members were executed in Bangladesh, she and her sister were given exile by the then Indian government. And this is the second time that she's found exile here. India played a huge role in Bangladesh's independence struggle from Pakistan in 1971, which was led by Sheikh Hasina's father, Mujibur Rahman, who went on to become the president of the country. So it's in this context, that India's position becomes very precarious, and obviously it's going to have an impact going forward with the relationship with the two between the two countries, and it remains to be seen how India is going to walk that tightrope, Terry.
Shalu, thank you very much as always. That was our correspondent Shalu Yadav in New Delhi.